And I never thought when I ran for office that I would win, first of all. But then when I won, I never thought I would have to hire people that knew how to shoot a gun well. And lo and behold, it actually is a prerequisite. Part of the reason they were both hired is because of their law enforcement background. And that's both good, you know, for them obviously, but also a little bit of a sad state of the affairs that we're concerned about our safety. My life's been saved at least a couple times by law enforcement, so I'm very appreciative of it. I was at the ball field a couple years ago. We have a charity baseball game. It's really a lot of fun. It's Republicans versus Democrats. We all get along. It's actually very good. We play in National Stadium, and all right, you're fired, Chief. You probably told all the people who work for you to turn their phone off.
There's probably more of them back there doing it.
But so we actually play at National Stadium, and we get to wear a uniform of either a college or a professional team. So I wear Western's uniform because I'm from Bowling Green. And so we were out practicing one day. Some of y'all probably remember reading about this. A gunman came up and started shooting at us. And James will have to help me with what he was shooting. Starts with an S. It's an AR-15 count. What?
SKS is what he was shooting.
SKS was what he was shooting. And he shot off about 160 rounds. And I don't know how many of y'all have been shot at, but it's not a pleasant thing, particularly if you don't have anything to shoot back with. So I was in the batting cage, and he shot Steve Scalise, and you've probably seen him on TV. He's one of the leaders in the Republican side in Congress. Was shot about right here. I could see him. I was in the right field batting cage, and it's only a hole like this. You figure it can't be that bad, right? You know, it was pretty bad. He went through his hip, through his pelvis, through his bladder, through his intestines, and must have nicked. And I do know this because I've seen your arteries and your veins in your groin. They're about this big around. You don't last long. If it hits the artery, you last a minute or two. It must have nicked the vein, which is still a lot of blood. He went through his entire volume of blood. It's either 24 or 26 units of blood. They got him by lifeline. He just barely made it. They had to leave him open. They couldn't close him for about a week. But he survived. He's still playing with the game. He walks with a limp, but he's still out there with us. But that day we had 2 Capitol Hill police who returned fire, and I remember thinking, when the hell are they going to shoot back? And it seemed like forever. It seemed like it was 45 minutes, and it probably lasted 30 minutes. In that 30 minutes, the guy shoots off. It sounded like the last 30 minutes, it lasted 5 or 6 minutes, but it took a minute or two for them to return fire, and I guess they were trying to figure out who to shoot. You know, you got to figure out who you're going to shoot. And he was over in a cinder block dugout, and he was on the third base side. So Scalise was at second base, and a friend of mine who's very southern from Mississippi, and who's in the National Guard and talks real funny like you do from Mississippi, and he said, well, now I knew when an alligator was chasing you, supposed to run like a zigzag, and so I thought I'd run like a zigzag when the guy was shooting me, and he missed me the whole way. And he gets over there, and they dive into, he made a mistake, he started running out, but instead of leaving the fence, which he should have done, he dove into the dugout, and there's about 18 of them in the dugout. But fortunately, it was a dugout that was submerged. Now, you walk down a step or two, it's probably maybe this deep, maybe a little bit less, and so the guys shooting, they're all on the ground in there. And there was a kid in there with them, one of them had their son with them, but fortunately, they would have all been killed had there not been a submerged dugout, because he fired a volley after volley in there. At one point, he decides to come around home plate, and if he'd have gotten close to him, he'd have killed them all. At that time, he's engaged with two Secret Service, Capitol Hill police. But I will tell all you big macho men who took the kill shot, a 4'11" woman with a rifle from the Alexandria Police Department showed up. You like that, don't you? Showed up, and it was kind of hard to tell. He got shot by 3 of them at one point, but he was finally killed. So anyway, that's a long-winded story of saying, you know, I do appreciate law enforcement. My wife and I were in D.C. about 3 months ago. We came from the White House. We go across the street. There's mobs everywhere. They said, don't go out that door. And some people said, why did you go out that door? We didn't go out that door. We got on a bus. We rode all around, but we still had to get back to our hotel. And it was 2 city blocks. And I've been married for 30 years, and my wife, I think, was about to divorce me after this episode because she said she shouldn't listen to me, which is probably true. I said, we can make it. Famous last words. We walked about a big city block, so maybe a 100-yard block. We walked, and as we were coming there, coming around the corner, there was a whole bunch of people marching and yelling and screaming. They saw me and recognized me, and they said, we've got him. So they surrounded us, and we made it to about 3 policemen on a corner. And as we got there, the crowd got big. There was probably 100 people that were spitting on us, throwing fluid on us, saying they were going to kill us. And we really thought that we took them for their word. But even with the police there, with 3 policemen, we weren't sure that the policemen could stop them. I mean, there were so many, there was just too many. And as a police person or a woman, man, you realize sometimes it's hard. If someone's unarmed, you're not supposed to shoot them, right? So all these people are unarmed, but they're dangerous. And can 100 people kill somebody? Sure, they can kill somebody. But I think we recognize the difficult situation you're put in trying to do law enforcement, the difficult decisions you make. And I think this is the problem that many in the public and the press are condemning the police for everything, and it's a hard decision to make. And these are difficult decisions you have to make on the spur of the moment. We finally I think we were going to be overrun by these people, and they called for reinforcements. And a bunch of them came, and so there was about 4 or 5 guys, and they were using their bikes. They were holding their bikes up, and they were using them to keep people back as we made one more block to the hotel. As we're doing this, one of them gets knocked back, and he turns, and I turn. I figure if he falls, they're getting me next. So I caught the back of his flak jacket and stabilized him and said, I got your back, man. I don't have any guns. I'm not very big, but I got your back. And so he stabilized him. This is what the Associated Press, and this is why you're not your local press, of course, but your national press is biased, bigoted, and not telling the truth. This is what the Associated Press reported. They said Rand Paul and his wife said they were attacked despite evidence, besides there being no evidence. Well, there's video all over the internet. You can watch it if you want to see if we were attacked or not. And then this is what they reported about the policeman. And they said one of the policemen was mildly jostled. Trying to be shoved over is not being jostled by an angry crowd. One of the police that was helping us, as we got into the hotel finally, the policeman went back out there, got hit in the face, and got stitches above his eye. The guy was released on his own recognizance that night. And it's my opinion, you assault a police officer, you got to stay in jail until your trial comes up. You know, I mean, that's, if we don't have any kind of respect for law enforcement, it's just going to get worse. This guy was released on his own recognizance, and I couldn't you know, skip smarting off. And so on Twitter I said, well, if you're looking for him, he's probably in Kenosha by now. That's when they were having all the riots in Kenosha. These people are flying around all these places. When I asked them to investigate the government of D.C., I said, why don't you find out who's buying their plane tickets and buying their tickets to their hotel rooms, $700 hotel rooms, and the most expensive hotels. Who's paying for them to travel around the country? But the bottom line is our lives were saved that night by police again. And people say, oh, you want to make it about race. I don't want to make it about race at all. The people attacking us were predominantly black, but 2 out of the 3 police officers were black. And we were defended by good people, no matter the color of their skin. So, but I think we do need to appreciate our law enforcement more, and that's part of me being here. I want to hear from you, and we'll start that in just a minute. But it was about the 15th meeting we've had like this around the state. There literally are people wanting to represent you who think we should defund the police. This is a real problem, and I think we've got to stop it, and we need to make sure that also people appreciate the good work that you're doing for the community. About a month ago, we did a big press event at the precinct house in Louisville. They had stopped a stranger abduction. It was like a how old, 8 or 9-year-old girl snatched off a bicycle, and they caught him within 8 minutes. It was remarkable. But in Louisville, all you read in the newspapers how terrible the police are. And I'm not saying every policeman's perfect, and that we shouldn't have rules for how policemen behave, the same way we have rules for everybody else. But they need to be appreciated. Y'all need to be appreciated when you do things. An open invitation, police chief and sheriff. If you have stories like that you want us to help promote and talk about, we're all for it. I think you should also be talking to your local newspaper, make sure they're reporting good things you do in the community. It isn't always a kidnapping. Sometimes it's an elderly woman who can't find her way around her house or gets lost in the community, something like that. There's a lot of good stuff that y'all do, and we need to make sure that we appreciate it.